We will say it like it really is.
With dignity and respect.
Committed to free speech and common sense.
Upbeat and entertaining.
Straight talking and direct.
We may agitate each other and you.
Heartfelt and passionate. Thought-provoking, provocative and controversial.
Fearless and truthful.
Hello and welcome to The Pledge. Well, we start with good news about a certain blue pill being available over the counter. Good news for Nick, at least, who some say could do with a little help improving his performance. Debating on The Pledge, of course. Coming up, for things President Trump should be banned from the UK. Rachel wants us to crack down on our dangerous gambling habit. Michelle thinks we should pay up and get on with Brexit. And Nick argues women shouldn't be surprised if certain clothing attracts male attention. But first, it's me. OK, now I want to believe in the fairy tale. Truly I do. A kind, handsome prince falls madly in love with a beautiful Hollywood starlet and they live happily ever after. But hang on. This Hollywood starlet is a fiercely intelligent, independent woman who's forged a successful career in the cutthroat world of showbiz. She's a campaigner, a charity worker. She says stuff like Trump is a misogynist. Meghan Markle is no fluffy Sloane whose only aim in life is to marry well. She's no weighty Katie messing around with menial jobs till her prince decides to propose. She's a woman with a mind of her own. And as much as she's melted the heart of this hardened old hack, I fear for her. The parallels with Diana just can't be ignored. Until now, she and Harry have hidden from the world, enjoying their cosy cottage in Kensington Palace. But now, there's no hiding place. The eyes of the world are upon them. Every move, every kiss, every touch, every sideways glance will be recorded because now the paparazzi have a new darling. And they will hunt her just like they hunted Diana. The lovely Meghan says she knows what's coming. My fear is that she has absolutely no idea.
Carol, I think we've actually finally found a topic on which we have quite a bit of agreement because I think what you're saying is in praise of Meghan Markle, and like you, I like and admire her.
Me too.
And I found myself in a very counterintuitive position this week of being quite pro-royal family, which, not that I've ever been anti the royal family, but they've just not been of interest to me, really. I've never really related to them before. They haven't felt like a family that in any way represent someone like me. So for the first time, because of Meghan Markle, I finally find myself interested in a royal wedding. And I think what you're saying is true, and I think it's really useful because we do have short memories to remember what happened to Diana. We all remember what happened to Diana, but we don't talk very often about the way that she was treated by the press and the paparazzi, and those comments that her brother made at her funeral about how she was the most hunted woman on earth, which was so haunting. And I think you're right that it is an issue, but I don't know what the answer is because, you know, when you think about the royal family, they play such a symbolic role. That's their role, really. They're symbolic. Yeah. They don't play any real political or constitutional role other than a symbolic one. And that works because people are interested in them.
I think she wants
And people are interested in them because they're in the public eye and we have access to information about their lives, and that's where the paparazzi come in. So if they were to be private, there would kind of be no point to them. That's the dilemma, and I don't know what the answer is.
I suppose when I was watching her, the thing that struck me most of all, you know, she's incredibly intelligent. And, you know, the way she conducted that interview, I thought was a masterclass on how to do exactly that. When you compare that to previous engagements of, you know, of Wills and before that with Diana, I mean, she was just so cool. My fear is that she is used to doing everything the way she wants to do it. This girl speaks out when she wants to speak out. She campaigns in the manner in which she wants to campaign. And my fear is that now that she's in the firm, everything will change. You know, she said something. You know, we've got a clip. Let's watch this clip. This kind of sums it up for me.
I think I can very safely say, as naive as it sounds now, having gone through this learning curve in the past year and a half, I did not have any understanding of just what it would be like. I don't think either of us did that. We both said that, even though we knew that it would be.
I tried to warn you as much as possible, but I think both of us were totally surprised by the reaction after the first 5-6 months of what we had to ourselves.
Now, when you look at that, they actually think they're prepared for what's coming. They think they know what's coming, and they have no idea. And he says, I tried to warn her. And they think they've been bothered in the past year, but they haven't. And now the world spotlight is on them, and it will never be turned down as long as she draws breath.
I think she'll be... Look, first of all, props to Afua, who is now the go-to person on a British royal wedding.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, good on that.
No,
and we're
fantastic.
looking forward
something's changed.
looking forward to much more. I think you're both completely wrong.
Yeah, I agree
have
with
to
you.
say. I mean, look at it. She's a Hollywood starlet. She is extremely accomplished, and she's very vocal, and she always has been. But, you know, let's look at it realistically. What happens to Hollywood starlets in their 30s? You know, it's a succession of surgeries and then you're phased off screen. I think she's got exactly the part she wants, and she will play the part to perfection. If you listen to what she said in that interview, it was fascinating. She sees this country, she's going into this country, she said boots on the ground, as if she's taking over and invading a small country.
I love it.
Good on her. I think the royal family won't know what.
But she's not come up against the firm yet. The firm controls everything. It all but destroyed Diana, and it has subsumed Kate.
That was in 1981.
Let me tell you why I think you're wrong, because, and quite rightly, Afa's talked about this, but it is fantastic that we have a woman who's already been married, who's an American and who's of mixed race. I don't want to bang on about that, but a few years ago, this wouldn't have even been a consideration within the palace. It shows how the family, I think the firm is, I think they've moved on. I think they've regenerated themselves. I think it's fantastic. Bear in mind, this woman is 36. I think I'm right in saying that was the age at which Princess Diana died. So she was died. She's done a lot of living. She's done a little bit of loving as well. She's a very accomplished actress. I think it's nothing but good. And I hear what you say, but she's a lot older, she's a lot wiser. And Carol, you and I both know, when Fleet Street, when Her Majesty's press was in its full height of ugliness, we don't have those days anymore.
No, but we do still have the paparazzi in it, which are not part of the mainstream media. They're not, but they're a totally different breed. But I think because she made such an incredible impression the other day, I think the hunger for her will never be.
But just lastly, because we must, you're comparing this accomplished actress who had this TV show with, and I'm not knocking Diana for saying she was a kindergarten teacher. I mean, there's a mile of difference.
I do know that, Michelle.
Well, you say so.
Well, I do struggle to get majorly excited by the news. I mean, you were just saying that you know, quite excited and all the rest of it. I was doing the news reviews on Tuesday morning after this was announced, and there was page after page. Exactly. I'm talking like 10 pages in newspapers.
Good. Curmudgeon.
There was souvenir pull-outs.
Yes.
That people, I mean, what on earth do you do
we have
with
to sell papers, Michelle, on this side
I've got them all filed at home.
This is the fever that I'm talking about.
But this, I'm going to be subjected to this now until this wedding day. What is she wearing? Where's she going? What is her mum doing? What's her dad doing? What's her mates?
Love it.
Why is there that desire to see such intimate stuff around these two?
Diana was a dazzling combination of royalty and Hollywood, and this girl is going to be the same.
Not when she came into the firm.
Well, but
she became that. Actually, the press created the myth of Diana, didn't they?
And she had Hollywood friends, and she had glamorous friends, and she had friends in the fashion world. This girl is exactly the same. I mean, I don't know how you don't see what's going to happen to her.
I think she's manipulating us. She's not being manipulated.
She's not smart enough to stop people hounding her. You know, her life as she knew it is over. She'll never be able to go to the shops again. She'll never be able to go. Well, she thinks that's what she wants now. But do you think Michelle
asked a question, which is why do people care so much about all these things? I think I understand, even though I've not been interested in the royal family before, because I think when people look at the royal family, they see something about themselves. You know, the royal family represent people's sense of Britishness. They represent part of people's identity. Ask a lot of British people what it means to be British. The Queen and the royal family will come in to their answer somewhere.
Even though they're German.
Well, I mean, we all know that that's the idea of symbols, you know, it's myth-making, it's narrative. The thing that's interesting is not just her, but Harry as well, who has behaved differently to previous senior royals. And I'm just going to read you a bit of the statement he wrote in response to the media storm when their relationship was first announced, when he said, "It's not right that a few months into a relationship with him that Miss Markle should be subjected to such a storm. He," and this is Harry, "knows commentators will say this is the price she has to pay and that this is all part of the game. He strongly disagrees. This is not a game, it's her life and his." And he is taking a stronger stance than anyone has before.
But that's not what will happen. I mean, I'm surprised you're not keen on it, because I would have thought someone of your age would have you know, that you'd be bonded to Harry in the way that young people are bonded to young people, and you would be excited by it.
When were you last bonded to Harry, by the way?
I don't think, obviously, not in that way.
I think the amount of projection
but I
is
thought
going
you'd
on
be
in this
more
topic
interested in it, because it's two young people, and it's two...
I think it's very nice that they've found love. I think it's awesome, and I'm very happy for them, but that's where it stops. I don't need to know where her dress is from or what she used to do or who her best mate was at school.
That's a shame, because you're going to be subjected to
Do you think women are envying her?
No, I would.
Do you think women are envying the opportunity to become she'll have to be called Princess Harry, by the way.
I know, why not Princess Meghan?
Weird
It's
constitution.
so weird.
Why not Meghan Wales? Could you get anything better than that?
Very Welsh.
Meghan Wales, you've
But
cracked
do you
it.
not think someone with her brain, with her intelligence, is going to become very bored very quickly with the mundanity of royal life? Because not everything will be a campaign.
Because they're going to play with the Commonwealth. Don't you remember? She said, we've got lots to do in the Commonwealth.
Not everything will be a campaign.
If it was a train kit.
Invade New Zealand.
There
we are.
We shall see.
What happens? This is what happens when royal commentators get upset.
Sorry.
So delicately done, honestly.
All right,
Thank God this
guys.
show
I
isn't
do
live.
get flustered when I have to do this. It's the trump card.
Oh.
The Joker is not funny anymore.
Did you kick that over deliberately?
I think that may have been some subconscious aggression.
I know you did.
Remember how, at the beginning of Trump's presidency, we talked a lot about his divisive, misogynist, racist conduct. We hardly ever bring it up these days. We've all acclimatised. Let's face it, for Donald Trump to shock us now, the bar is pretty high. So congratulations, Mr. President. By endorsing the message of an extreme right-wing group, you have successfully reached a new low. The obscure Britain First, which campaigns on an openly white supremacist platform, has been given a global boost thanks to the leader of the free world, who approvingly retweeted their overtly Islamophobic posts. Even Theresa May, usually reluctant to alienate our supposed ally, has issued a statement condemning Trump's messages. It's time for her to go a step further. Any suggestion of Trump being given a state visit must now be unequivocally withdrawn. May said, British people overwhelmingly reject the prejudiced rhetoric of the far right, which is the antithesis of the values this country represents. It's time we rejected the president who endorses them, too.
So I watched the videos that he had tweeted, and I actually found them genuinely upsetting, particularly the one where there was the guy on the crutches, which I won't necessarily go into all the details of, but I found that really... It genuinely upset me, and when you share content like that, whoever you are, you're doing it to provoke a strong, horrible reaction against the perpetrators. That's the only reason. You are trying to create division and hatred. There's no other reason for that. So I feel very strongly that he shouldn't have shared those tweets. There's no real reason to have shared those tweets other than to whip up a frenzy and hatred. So I think he was very, very wrong to have done so. I don't think he probably recognised the Britain First thing. So whilst it's prominent to us, particularly with Joe Cox, etc., I don't think it has that prominence in America. So I don't think there was a natural link there and an intention to endorse a particular group. I think that was an accidental byproduct, but I think he was very wrong to have done what he did.
Just to make plain, the person who murdered Joe Cox, of course, was not a member of the organisation, although he used those words, just so we get... Sorry, Michelle, back to you.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So that's the first point. The second point is, I don't think he should be denied a state visit. I think that people have been trying to stop that state visit pretty much from day one, and they will just jump on anything that they can find to stop that, because they just don't like him. He is the President of the United States. We need, particularly post-Brexit, a relationship with the United States. So I don't think we should be stopping that state visit.
Either you do let him come or you don't let him come. I don't think you can let Brexit...
Yes, but I don't think you should let Brexit...
No, but I don't think you should let Brexit... Either what he's done goes beyond the pale, or it is acceptable.
And does it go beyond
the pale? Let me just very quickly answer your point.
Sorry.
It's my response to a state visit isn't to do with Brexit. I've always said he should be entitled to a state visit.
Has he gone beyond the pale?
I'm going to confess something. This is the first time I feel completely conflicted, and I actually don't know. And it's the first time in living memory, and I actually felt myself doing this on the radio.
Why didn't he delete his retweets?
It's totally wrong. It's absolutely inexcusable. It's unpardonable. And my first reaction is, we are not like this in Britain. We are a tolerant nation. But... let's just remember, we have incredible affinity. They are among our closest allies. And although it is Trump, we are also talking about the bond between the British people and the American people who have been through wars together. My late father served in the war, and that generation did. So to allow this loathsome individual... And by the way, I've never been into dishing Trump because 4 million Americans... I've always tried to see the better side of him. That's over. From now on in, That's it. You've gone too far. You're a loathsome individual. But does that mean you break relations between UK and US? I honestly am conflicted.
We can't break relations. You know, Michelle made the point, post-Brexit, it's very important. He's one of the guys who said, we'll be first in line to get a deal. But, you know, since time immemorial, we have had relationships with American presidents. And, you know, I think our mistake is, I mean, I think he's an idiot as well, but I think our mistake is we keep expecting him to morph into the kind of president that we know and understand. He's never going to be that. He won't care about any of this criticism. He really doesn't care. All he cares about is representing the people who voted for him, the people in Middle America. So none of this touches him. And us frothing at the mouth and saying he shouldn't come, he shouldn't come. You know, I heard someone on the radio today say, you know, he should be allowed to come and watch the demonstrations. No, because that's just going to... I nearly said a swear word. That's going to hack him off. That's going to really mess him up. And he's likely to take spite out on this country. We don't want to do that.
Yeah, we shouldn't be frightened, though.
We can't crawl to him, but we can't alienate him either. We need America, whether we like it or not.
Well, I think the tragic thing is that clearly, from the evidence of President Trump's tweet this morning, which directly accused Theresa May of sort of trying to undermine him, he just doesn't care. And I think what we're seeing is a real degradation in the art of international diplomacy.
Just to tell them, come back to you, just in case you didn't see, so the viewers, if you don't know, this is at Theresa May. This is from President Trump. Don't focus on me, focus on the destructive, radical Islamic terrorism that is taking place within the United Kingdom. We are doing just fine.
And I know it pains me to say this, and I know that Carol will roll her eyes, probably rightly, but I just feel that since first Brexit and then Trump, we have seen a sort of coarsening of discourse, which he is spearheading and encouraging because it encourages his own power base. So let's see how we reacted to it.
But to visit or not to visit? You've danced around a bit.
I think he's got to come. He's still president of the United States. But let's see what Chuka Umunna, who speaks about many things, and he's now responded to the Trump tweets.
I don't think the President of the United States, a president who has not only promoted bigotry, misogyny and racism in his own country, I don't think he is welcome here. I think the invite that has been made to him to come to our country in early 2018 should be withdrawn.
I don't agree. I think that when he goes low, we go high. And we show President Trump how a grown-up country with courtesy at its heart of its institutions operates.
And the tragedy is, you said this at the start, you said this has given, this group, this Britain First, is only about 1,000 active members. We have now made them like global...
we haven't, he has.
He has. He has. We haven't, no, he has.
So for those of you, well, I guess all of you who think that the visit shouldn't be cancelled, is there... Well, you're on the fence.
I'm to be one.
That's a big change. He really got to you with this one.
You were really looking forward to it, Nick, remember?
Yes, but that's it
is there, for the rest of you, a line that... Because, I mean, Carol, you said, you know, they're our ally, we need to keep that relationship. Is there a line, or is there nothing that he could do that would make you think that we need to stand up for our values as a country?
I think he's a dangerous buffoon, I do. But for 4 years at least, he's representing the biggest superpower on the planet. We can't just say, off you go, we don't like what you say. And the tragedy in all of this...
He's totally conscious of what we stand for in this country,
Yes, he is. But, yeah, he is. And you know, when he says here, don't focus on me, focus on the radical Islamic terrorism, you know, no one's doing that. We're just focusing on his stupidity and his idiocy in doing this, and that's the tragedy.
Don't forget that it's a government that he would be engaging with, and that government is not just Theresa May. There are ministers. And I just want to read you what Sajid Javid said, because for people who are actually personally affected by the kind of rhetoric that Trump is endorsing, of whom Sajid Javid is one, he said, "So POTUS has endorsed the views of a vile, hate-filled, racist organisation that hates me and people like me. He is wrong, and I refuse to let it go and say nothing." You know, these are the issues. People in government are personally affected by the kind of message that he is endorsing.
I think that it's a mistake to make it America all about Donald Trump. And he comes over as president of the biggest, you know, superpower, which we have to do business with. And, you know, he loves all this attention.
There's doing business, and then there's the specific honour.
Either you have a principle, right, Rach, in all honesty, you have a principle by which you live, or you think, well, actually, it's not quite the same principle because China or US are quite powerful and big.
I think he'd be thrilled if the UK cancelled the state visit.
Guys, show of hands. he should not be invited for a state visit. Nick, come on,
Sorry,
I know.
I can't. It was her line, when he goes low, we go high. That's what won it for me. Sorry.
OK, I'm alone, but strong. So the rest of you all think he should be able to come.
Imagine poor Theresa May. She probably really wants to tell him to do one, and she can't. She has to deal with this guy. And she has to tread a very fine line.
Sorry, winner takes it all. It's time to move on. I'm not keen on banning things or on state interference in general, but even I have my limits. And the way gambling has saturated our culture has gone way too far. Since Labour yielded to pressure and gave the industry a free licence in 2005, fixed odds betting terminals, where people can lose £100 every 20 seconds, have multiplied. Ads for gambling and betting are all over our screens, and you can now do it on your phone at home. We've even had companies promoting online games designed to attract children. Yes, it is a fruit machine spitting money for the Treasury, but it's shocking and irresponsible that politicians have so far ducked the opportunity to curb an addictive, destructive habit and have instead encouraged it. Gambling ads on telly should be cut right back, maximum stakes on betting terminals reduced, and gambling ads banned at sports events and on shirts. It will be hard. It will cost. But we must rupture the unhealthy relationship between sport and gambling. What is government for, if not for this?
Well, Rachel, so much for your newfound Liberal Democrat tendencies in that you're seeking to ban this. Here's a few facts and figures about gambling, by the way. 65% of the adult population gamble in one form or another. They enjoy doing it legally, safely.
How do you know they enjoy it?
Well, why do they keep going back and doing it? All right, I'll ask every single one. No, we'll get to that in a moment. With a controlled environment. Less than 1% of gamblers are classed as having a problem. To those people, we must afford...
That's almost 500,000 people, by the way, if you're throwing statistics around.
OK, to those people, we must afford full sympathy, but that means 65% are doing something that they enjoy legally and they get pleasure from. Now to the cash side of it. It's worth the thick end of £3 billion in tax revenue to this country, which is money that's very, very well taken
and some might say too much of that is benefits money being recycled.
There are 9,000 betting shops currently on the high street. There were 16,000.
That's about 8,000 too many.
There were 16,000 in the 70s and 80s. The number of people gambling,
research because people are all doing on their phones, over 90%.
Gee whiz. Research by... It's like teaching a group of 14-year-olds. Research by the Gambling Commission showed participation in gambling has fallen from 57% to 45%, and they employ 40,000 people. In summary, this is something that is perfectly legal. Most people do it at a satisfactory level. To those who don't, it's like alcohol. We must afford full... and indeed sex as well. To those who have problems with it, we should afford full sympathy and full treatment. But it is something that we enjoy. It is something that adds to the richness and gaiety of the nation, and it is fun to have a flutter on the Grand National or the FA Cup final or whatever it might be. And you take away some of the colour and fabric of the UK.
I'm going to give you it's fun to have a flutter once in a while, but I think that the problem is far greater than that. It's really becoming epidemic. And we've got
Give me the figures that back up that it's epidemic. I've just told you the shops are in decline, gambling's in decline. So talk to me about how it's epidemic. Look at the Gambling Commission figures, Rachel.
It may be in decline, but too many, half a million people have got problems.
Justify the expression epidemic.
Almost half the population are gambling regularly. I just think that's too much. And I resent the fact that when my children watch a game on television, they are absorbing most of the time, 80% of the game, there are ads for betting and gambling all over our screens. It is invidious. It makes it seem cool and sporty.
Then why are we gambling less?
I think where you're going wrong, Nick, and I agree with Rachel, is that you're addressing the question of whether people enjoy gambling. You know, there are people who enjoy gambling. I am also liberal in my tendency. I don't want to ban people from doing something they enjoy. The issue for me is who gambling is targeted at. This isn't a level playing field. If you look at where gambling shops and betting terminals are, right? The 55 most deprived neighbourhoods are stuffed with betting shops and gambling terminals. The poorest quarter of the population spend double the amount on gambling of the richest quarter of the population. So this isn't evenly spread. This is not about a flutter on the Grand National. This is about betting companies exploiting people on low income to make profit, which is then being recycled.
Guess which part of London? Sorry, which part of London? One major high street chain is has most beggars.
Tower Hamlets.
No, Canary Wharf, which for people outside of London is where all the city boys and girls are, and they love fluttering their
I'm not
bonuses.
saying that high-income people don't gamble, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with anyone gambling per se. I'm saying that betting companies are targeting low-income people and cynically exploiting them to make money, and that's what I have a problem with.
Thank you for your support. And we should just recap, which is the government, DCMS, the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, has had an opportunity to do something about fixed odds and all the rest of it, which have, I think, a stake of 100 and 200 quid, to take it down to 2. They've kicked that into the long grass till 2018. So let us see what Tom Watson of the Labour Party has to say about the fact that they're kicking the can yet again on this problem.
I think the problem with these machines is they're in every community on every estate now. I mean, the bookies have been opening new stores over the last decade because they can only put 4 in per store, and so people, if they've got them on their doorstep, can, you know, there's so many stories now about people losing a week's wages, not being able to feed the family.
And you know, to preempt what your next argument is going to be, probably, which is that, you know, let's say horse racing would fold if you banned advertising. I agree, obviously you need the tote to run it. But everyone said that if you banned cigarette advertising, that the motor racing industry would fold, and it didn't. It carried on. You know, there are ways of these things being made to work. Michelle?
My problem with this, so I don't want things banned. I think if you want to gamble, that's up to you. But I think that the industry isn't taking responsibility for the problems it does cause, in the sense of, and I'll tell you for where I mean, and I'll give you a real example of something that happened to me last week. But gambling companies are supposed to be paying 0.1% of their revenues into things like Gamble Aware and charities that actually help people. So the 0.5% of people, 500,000%, those people do need support. 500,000 people. Those people do need support, and the industry isn't following the commitments that it said it would to help them. So that's the first problem that I've got. They should be doing it. My second problem, just last week, I had an experience with a betting company which shall remain nameless. I'd had a previous bet and I'd won a reasonable amount of money. I decided that I wanted to close my account and withdraw the money. And when I tried to do so, which should have been a reasonable, easy thing to do, it turns out that my card had expired. So the card that I'd paid into had expired. Right. In order to get my money out, the only way it was possible was to register a new card, fine, to get the money onto, but it wouldn't let me withdraw until I'd paid money into the account. So I had to make a deposit before I could take my own money out. Now, I have no problem with gambling, but if I did, I would potentially struggle not to re-gamble that new money and the remaining money. And I thought that was outrageous how difficult they made it to get my own money out.
I just need to give a right of reply to the Association of British Bookmakers, because we'll have a quote off again. Betting shops serve over 6 million customers each year, and the vast majority of people gamble responsibly. We do, however, recognise that there are a minority who are a problem or at-risk gamblers, and that is why we are investing considerable resources into trying to identify those people so that they get the help that they need. So addressing your point, Michelle, the Association of British Bookmakers say they are taking responsibility.
But Michelle's point was, when you make a gamble on your phone, it's almost impossible to unsubscribe, and then if you do unsubscribe, they say, we'll give you this free money, so you bet again.
Have you lost a lot of money on a bet?
No, but I have a member of my family who has had a problem with gambling addiction. It's incredibly hard. It is ranked alongside crack addiction.
I've said they need help
in terms of force.
I'll address that in a minute. We may also need to get out that the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport has said, quotes, our gambling review set out a package of proposals to ensure consumers and wider communities are protected. We've also brokered a new responsible gambling advertising campaign that the gambling industry and broadcasters will work together on. This will include spots in and around live sport. And I would remind you, of course, that you see adverts when the fun stops. And there's very few industries that spend that much money actually trying to prevent you not to do it. But I would have made a lot of money if I put a bet that Carole Malone would have stayed quiet for this one. I reckon I'd have got 50 to 1.
I have to wait. So I'm waiting patiently.
I'd have got 50 to 1.
So is it my turn?
Yeah, absolutely. I've made a lot of money.
The reason I haven't chipped in is because I'm kind of with all of you on this. You know, I'm not sure any government is going to take any action anytime soon, because you've given some figures. Last year, I think betting... Oh, I've just dropped my pen. Betting institutions took 14 billion quid off punters, and the government government took 2.2 billion of that in tax take. So they're not going to rush to do it anytime soon. And no one government's to blame. Successive governments over the years have presented us with more and more gambling opportunities. And it hacks me up a bit that even the National Lottery is made to look like a charitable institution, when in fact it's another way to get you hooked, because they tell you about all these charities they're supporting, mainly what they're supporting is themselves.
To be fair, they do support a lot of charities and community projects.
But the betting industry has the government over a barrel. And what they keep saying every time the government, in this latest review, every time they say they want to do something about it, the betting industry whines that it's going to lose 20,000 jobs and it's going to be very bad, it's going to damage the industry. No, it's going to damage their profits. But I'm like you, I don't want to ban things. I don't want to ban things, you know. But I do know that those fixed odds betting things, they're mostly used by problem gamblers. They're not used by punters.
Which is a problem.
But they'll just find something else. If you close those down...
No, you're right.
They won't say, oh, I'm going to give up gambling. They'll find something else. It's like if you're an alcoholic, God forbid. If we banned whiskey, you'll move to beer or vodka. You won't give up.
You're right. I think you're right.
We're going to get to the break, and I'm going to tell Alfred to stop kicking Donald Trump under that table. You're watching The Pledge, and it's me next, and I'm going to be arguing we need to stop getting our knickers in a twist over Brexit.
Oh.
What would you buy with £50 billion? That's not a question most of us get to ask ourselves very often, except Nick, that is, obviously. But that's precisely what the EU will be able to do after the government agreed to up their offer of a Brexit divorce bill in the hope it will unlock trade talks next month. As a Brexiteer, I am, of course, outraged by this. But logically, to achieve the best outcome, there's no other option. It's what we have to do. What I'm most angry about is the childish behaviour of politicians, here and in Europe, when it comes to Brexit. The EU is trying to punish us, saying we can't even talk about trade until we've given them enough money. And MPs here, especially Labour, and know better. They are making life difficult for this government just to score points. And I am so tired and bored of all the squabbling around Brexit. Politicians need to grow up and do their jobs. That's what they are paid for. We've decided, we've voted, so please, let's just get on with it.
Like you, I'm bored with all the squabbling. And as you know, I'm an ardent Leaver, but I am incandescent with rage at the idea that we should be paying 50 billion quid to leave the EU. We didn't vote for this surrender. This is sickening appeasement on a grand scale. You know, Theresa May said, no deal is a bad deal. This is a terrible deal. And people will quite rightly go bananas on this. We've gone from Boris saying, go whistle, to 50 billion quid, which I think is...
Potentially, that's not being decided.
Potentially, but, you know, if knowing our lot, the way they've been negotiating so far, that will probably end up paying more. And, yes, we should pay what we contractually owe, but we should not pay to trade. You know, trade is not an act of generosity. We are going to be doing this. And, last week, I think it was the World Bank published a paper saying if we had to walk away without a deal, what would happen is, and if we had to go to world trade rules with the 27 different countries, they said the worst case scenario is that our trade with the EU would go down by just 2%. So it's not going to be catastrophic. But the idea that we have to pay to trade with them is chronic. Pay what we owe, but what we owe is not 50 billion.
But if it is 50 billion... If it's decided, because don't forget, all that's happened now is we've agreed a framework by which we will calculate this. And if you've got liabilities, you will also have assets as well. So we don't know what that amount is. But if that amount is 50 billion contractually that we owe, would you be comfortable with that?
I don't believe it is 50
billion. No, but if it is...
But I don't believe it
is.
But if it is... That's a rhetorical question. I can't answer it. I don't believe it is.
But let's just say...
we can just go on all night.
We don't know what the amount is, but... If it is decided and determined it's 50, would you be okay?
The bottom line is...
I think you mean yes.
EU lawyers have said we don't actually have to pay anything. Actually, we're being the good guys saying that we would pay up to the end of the budget in 2019. We don't actually have to do that.
But we do have contractual obligations.
But the idea we're going to commit 50 billion quid is outrageous.
I don't know why I'm laughing, because it's not really funny.
It's not funny.
I mean, you talk about a bad deal. For me, the bad deal And I'm also upset about 50 billion. And the reason I'm upset is that we are going to have to pay, predictably in my view, a huge amount of money to leave an organisation which has benefited us. It was
a failing
a catastrophically
organisation,
bad deal, but it was always foreseeable. And that's what upsets me, that people voted Brexit, I think, not understanding the cost. And Carol, I know you don't like the amount of money. None of us do, but we were always going to have to pay to leave. And that's why it upsets me.
It's far worse than how you say. People voted leave on the assumption that rather than us paying 50 billion, we were going to get 350 million a week back to pay the NHS.
And as we saw,
hold on, Carol,
12.6 billion into their coffers. That was
as we even saw from the budget, which I think was last week, although it feels like a lifetime ago, the NHS is getting 2.7 billion, but just in order for us to achieve Brexit, you know, the customs and the lorry parks and all the rest of it, they need another 3 billion. So Brexit is actually going to cost an enormous amount of money. But on the 50 billion, Carol, this is called the rest à liquider, which is to do with the things that we agreed to do that we are getting some benefit from. And actually that cost will be amortised, sorry to use a boring word, over could be a long time. And I think, in fact, the Treasury is going to make it look much smaller than 50 billion. In order to calm people like you and Nigel Farage, who've also said it's outrageous.
This is what Remainers do.
Sorry, don't try your finger at me, Carol.
You're trying to
not. You say it's outrageous. Nigel Farage says it's outrageous. I'm just saying you both say it's outrageous.
Why don't you compare me to the 17.4 million people who voted to leave the European Union?
Why are you getting so angry?
You're inflammatory. You do this every week about Brexit. It's inflammatory.
I just remind you, Michelle, the conversation you're leading is called a price worth paying. So I decided to get my calculator out and find out exactly what £50 billion might buy, and I thought I'd run you through some of these. It could get you 8 aircraft carriers, 300,000 doctors, 2,000 royal weddings, 12.5 billion pints of beer, or a night in the jungle with Stanley Johnson, and I know which one I would go for.
How many villas in the south of France?
Oh, goodness knows how many villas.
FERRARI.
Well, I haven't got that many. I've closed it down at 17,500 now. But coming back to the point, so just so I don't... OK. I don't know if it's £50 billion. If it is £50 billion, then we'd probably better pay it. On the upside of what the team to my left are saying, if you were to look at, and if it is amortised over 20 or 30 years, actually that is still a saving of what we would have paid in to be members of the EU. Yeah. To support the team on my right, I think it does speak to the fact that we are at best flailing in these negotiations. It wasn't properly presented to the people, a bit like the Northern Irish border, and we are trying to find our way. Sorry, Michelle, it's your debate.
But I don't think we are flailing. I just feel we've all become like amateur economists. We all seem to think we know better than the people who are currently being paid to run these negotiations. Every twist, every turn, every conversation. But I am fed up of it. I am fed up of politicians using it as an opportunity to score points and snipe.
But that's what they have to do, Michelle.
No, they don't. What they have to do is go, you know what, if we've collectively decided that if we've majority decided we're going to do Brexit, then let's pull together, let's work together to achieve that.
You can see they must negotiate for the best deal. So you wouldn't just want David Davis saying, right, this is the deal, and everybody saying, yeah, all right. You don't want to unquestionably march behind the leader, do you? You do want a little bit of, well, why don't we try a bit more here? Why don't we try...
Michelle, I can't work out whether I agree with you or not, because I completely agree with you that we do need to be clear-eyed about this. There are obligations and liabilities, and we're going to have to pay what we have to pay. Yeah. However, I feel, and tell me if I'm wrong, that implicit in what you're saying is this kind of suspicion that people are somehow trying to sabotage the negotiations or trying to make them more complicated than they are. I think they are complicated and they're costly, and that was always going to be the case.
I think the way we are being treated by the EU in various different parts is absolutely disgusting. I think the fact that they would not even have... Like, why are you forcing us to commit to a sum of money before you will even have conversations about future relationships? Why are we being forced into a corner to say we're going to give you this before we even know what we're going to get in return? I know people, for example, that live in Spain who are currently being told when they go to more than one airport on more than one occasion, they have to go in this separate queue. When I hear the way that they are being treated in these airports by European officials, It infuriates me.
How is that different to how Theresa May treated EU residents in the UK by refusing to guarantee their status? People are being held hostage.
They still don't know their status. They still don't know.
But this 50 billion, this is not about paying what we owe necessarily. This is to open trade talks. So it is paying to do trade, which is the ridiculousness. Why should we pay to trade?
You accept we owe some of the money, though?
Yes, we owe some of it, yes.
Because we have given commitment.
Yes, we have.
How, Carol, do you know what the sum is, or which makes you so outraged about 50 billion?
I don't know what the sum is. I didn't
say
I did.
In which case, you know, it may be a very accurate and fair amount, and it's going to open the door.
Okay, so my feeling
is... It's going to actually mean that you can leave the EU, which is what you want.
So my feeling is that if this gets any more than 50 billion or more, why aren't we just walking away? We keep on banging on about the importance of a trade deal. You know, Germany has its biggest export market is to America. It doesn't have a trade deal with America, but it trades. Its biggest import thing, the country that it buys most from, is China. It doesn't have a trade deal. Why are we fretting over paying 50 billion for a trade deal?
But do we not agree we have to pay what we owe?
Is the single market. 44% of UK exports go to the EU. We are not America. We are a small nation
do you know
that
what,
will
do you know
now
what,
be
do you know
isolated
our exports
if we
to
leave
the,
without a deal,
exports to the EU are? It amounts to
45% of our exports go to the EU.
12.6% of our GDP. And if we lost it all, it would amount to 1/4 of our economy.
So you'd be happy to see our manufacturing industry no longer able to export within the EU? That's
Quoting numbers to each other. The numbers up for that, because coming up in a couple of minutes, why I think women should take responsibility. Why am I doing that today? For what they wear. What have I done? What have I done? It should, I suppose, have come as no surprise. It fell to veteran actress and Miss Marple star Dame Angela Lansbury to detect a shred of sense and logic out of the sexual harassment scandal that's engulfed Hollywood, Westminster and elsewhere. Dame Angela, a sprightly 92, by the way, this week said, and I quote, "There are two sides to the coin. We have to own up to the fact that women, since time immemorial, have gone out of their way to make themselves attractive. And unfortunately, it has backfired on us. And this is where we are today." And she concludes, "We must sometimes take blame, women. I really do think that." Now, before feminists take up arms to attack her, and probably me, consider carefully what she's saying. No one is condoning inappropriate suggestions, touching or behaviour, while women have every right to dress in tight tops, skimpy skirts, thigh-length boots, or in Rachel's case, like Kim Jong-un from North Korea, they shouldn't be surprised if it attracts acceptable attention from men. Surely you don't need to be a super sleuth to work that out.
Thank you for drawing attention to my boiler suit.
Lovely boiler suit,
which I wore deliberately in order to provoke on this topic. Because
right.
I think it's problematic to say that if women dress sexy, they are presenting themselves as sex objects and in inviting unwanted sexual attentions or even worse, violence.
That's not what she's saying.
Well, no, in fact, she did say something
point.
else in this speech, which she basically said you're sort of inviting trouble if you go out.
Sorry, it's important for her. Should women be prepared for this? No. And no, they shouldn't have to be. There's no excuse. So that is what she's saying. All she's saying is, if you dress in a guy is going to be attracted. That doesn't mean I can touch you. That doesn't mean I can make inappropriate suggestions. But I am going to be attracted to someone.
That's not all she was saying.
I don't think that
she
was
wasn't
the
saying
what she was
women
saying.
make themselves attractive and then they look attractive. She was making a link between the way women look and the way they dress and the kind of sexual abuse that has been proliferating, or at least our awareness of it has been proliferating.
Can I...
She's not here to defend herself. It's awful to say we can't make ourselves look as attractive as possible without being knocked down and raped. She's saying, all she is saying is, if a woman makes herself... a man is probably going to be attracted.
Read that out again, because I thought that... I couldn't get my head around that.
With the last one I did?
Yeah, the one, knocked down and raped, that one.
OK, Nick Ferrari is always right, so we need to... I'm sorry, it's the line underneath. It's awful to say we can't make ourselves look as attractive as possible without being knocked down and raped. It's awful to say. But people... Yes.
But what she's suggesting is, if you make yourself as attractive as possible, you run the risk of being knocked down and raped.
OK.
If you invert the change the genders, isn't it weird? We couldn't be sitting here having a debate that say if men go out dressed, looking themselves looking sexy and attractive, they can't complain, if they receive unwarranted and sometimes physical attention from women.
She's talking about the sexual harassment scandal that's been in Hollywood. Do you not think that is a little bit out of control, the sexual harassment scandal?
I would agree with... because I think there is an incredible cull of men for tiny offences, which
sending a text or something
sending
like
a text or hand on knee. You know, I think women from time immemorial have dealt with that quite well.
OK.
I think the rape comment was a bit clumsy and a bit unfortunate. However, I got what she was trying to say to her. What she's saying is that women dress in a certain way and present themselves in a certain way. Women, you know, whether you want to admit it or not, women exploit their youth, their beauty, the way they look, and they exploit it by dressing in a certain way and looking in a certain way. And yes, that can attract men. And you can't pretend that by dressing in a provocative way and that by wearing really short skirts, you're not doing it to attract members of the opposite sex, because you are. Now, you know, Judge Lindsay Kushner, she was presiding over a case earlier this year. Remember her? She says, girls are perfectly entitled to drink themselves to the ground, but should be aware people who are potential defendants to rape gravitate towards girls who have been drinking. It is the same thing. Women have to take responsibility. They have a duty to take responsibility for themselves. That's not to say that they deserve to be raped because they wear provocative clothing, but you have to be aware that if you do, you're going to attract attention.
I really want to bring the show in, but
your body is your responsibility.
Shaking your head.
I feel so strongly about this. I know that none of you, and Angela Lansbury is not trying to say that women invite rape. I know you're not saying that. And so it's important to say that I'm not saying any of you are saying that or she's saying that. However, these kind of remarks, which do make a link to the way women dress and sexual harassment and sexual violence, are taking place in a context where we live in a rape culture. 16 to 59-year-old women, 1 in 5 of them have experienced, in this country, sexual assault. 1/3 of young women have experienced some kind of sexual assault during their childhood. This is not some niche issue. Women, who I'm sure most of you agree have not behaved in any way reprehensibly, are experiencing regularly unwanted sexual attention, sexual assault and rape. And this isn't about what anyone is wearing. This is about power. This is about a society where men are using power to abuse women. That is systemic.
When the judge says...
What women do, their personal conduct and the way that they experience this power structure are completely separate.
Afua, just before I bring Michelle, if a girl does drink herself into the ground, should she be aware of the potential consequences?
There are lots of reasons why I wouldn't recommend women to drink themselves.
Do you have any responsibility for your body and how you behave?
There is nothing a woman can do that would make her more responsible for being a victim of any kind of sexual assault, in my view. And I'm shocked that anyone would suggest...
She bears no responsibility.
And can I just bring in what Rape Crisis say about this, because it's important. They say as well, it's a deeply unhelpful myth that rape and other forms of sexual violence are caused or provoked by women's sexuality or attractiveness. And I 100% agree with that statement.
You've got a daughter. If when she's a few years older, she went out at night wearing a very short skirt, what would you say to her?
I think that as women, we are responsible for ourselves, but that's
what would you say to your daughter?
Separate. The thing I worry about for my daughter is that nothing she will do is going to take her out of risk of some kind of sexual assault, because it is prevalent, regardless of how women behave.
Michelle.
I feel like I need to caveat what I'm about to say with the fact that I don't suggest that anyone deserves to be touched, abused, or anything. I need to make that caveat.
We are where we are.
So nobody is responsible if they are, if I'm abused in any way. It's not my responsibility. It's the perpetrator's fault. Full stop. Now that I've said that caveat, I'll make a few points. When I was on The Apprentice and I won The Apprentice, which is a business show, the second I became available to the media, I was inundated with offers of a lot of money to take my clothes off, to pose in underwear, bikinis, whatever, a lot of money, by various different publications. I made a very considered choice to say no matter what sum of money, that I never wanted to have photographs in bikinis, lingerie, etc. Because I work in business, and I work particularly in technology, which, wrongly at the moment, is dominated by men. So very often I am pretty much one of the only women in my meetings. I don't want any of those men to have seen my breasts, my backside, because I feel that puts me in a disadvantaged position when I'm trying to have serious professional business conversations with those people.
No,
absolutely
that's what
not.
we're talking about.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about, is there a link between how one dresses and how one is reacted to based on
perceived
based on that choice of dress?
I really think, I hear what you're saying, Michelle, but I really think it's important to separate this completely from the issue of sexual harassment, sexual assault. You know, all of us who talk to young women would advise them to dress professionally, to carry themselves in a certain way. That has nothing to do with your responsibility if you are ever the victim of some kind of sexual assault.
Maybe Angela Lansbury was also talking about a bit more than clothes. Maybe she was talking about women who chose to sleep with men in Hollywood for a reason. It was an arrangement. You know, Marilyn Monroe was asked if she slept with her bosses. She said, of course, it's expected and accepted.
And I revert to my comments about power. This is a place where men
power, because
hold
women
the
always
power.
have the right to say no to these people. If they want a part in a movie, and if they know the way to get it is to sleep with whoever's directing it, they go, yes or no, yes I will, or no I won't. They make a decision. It's a transaction. And that's not necessarily abuse.
It's just another way women are affected by the unequal distribution of power in our society. And, you know, I feel sorry for Angela Lansbury because there are many women who I think have genuinely been conditioned to believe that the kind of treatment they experience is their own fault. You know, there was that American gymnast, Gabby Douglas, who said in a Twitter that women have to take some responsibility for their sexual abuse by the way they dress and carry themselves. It then emerged she was one of the 125 gymnasts who'd been abused by the team doctor. And, you know, women often internalise that victim blaming, and that's why I think it is very important to have a clear line in the discussion between how women behave and the way that they are treated.
Certain things that may or may not happen to you, if you want to avoid that, don't dress in a certain way. I mean, it's common sense to me.
I think it is changing. I think it's generational, which is why Angela Lansbury, age 92, says it. But now, at no age and at no stage is it ever
she's seen it. She doesn't just say it; she's seen it.
Yeah.
All right, it's almost time out, thank God. But no offence, guys. But before we go, there is just time, maybe appropriately, for our knockout of the week. So, after years of dreaming of the top job, plotting moves, building alliances, winning over the voters, it's finally happened. Johnson has become PM. It's not quite what you think. Boris hasn't kicked Theresa May out of Downing Street. Our very own Rachel hasn't enjoyed a freak Lib Dem surge into government.
No, it's gone like that.
Yeah, the minute you joined, that was the end of the party.
Yeah, it's Johnson Senior, Rachel and Boris's father, Stanley, who has been made Prime Minister of the Jungle on I'm a Celebrity. But after Stanley's triumphant election victory, the boxer Amir Khan had a few questions for the new leader.
Can a woman become Prime Minister?
Well, Toff would succeed me.
Oh, yeah? So
Toff.
a woman is...
She's
has there ever been a woman Prime Minister
Well,
in the UK?
Mrs.
Are you joking?
Or Margaret Thatcher?
The God.
Theresa May.
Theresa.
Oh, Theresa May.
And Theresa May.
Don't tell no one that.
It's often said that we've had enough of experts, but this may be taking things a little too far. So, Amir Khan, you are our knockout comment of the week. Have you ever had a female Prime Minister, guys?
That was the best ever. Pa, 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 pa. Well done, Amir.
It's been a noisy episode. That's it for this week, but you can find The Pledge on Facebook and Twitter to join in the debate yourself. See you next time.